Hello, this is the first of two videos which I'm going to look at how to make object-oriented programming with Boris bikes as a kind of reference. So first of all, we're going to create two files. We're going to make bike. We're going to create a folder to start with, and we're going to call this lib, and then also we create a bike.rb. So we can start to edit our files by creating first we create a gem file, and also we can create a testing file. So this creates our spec file for us, and also our spec file. We can put format documentation to make that our results for our testing a bit clearer. We can also include RSpec as part of our spec file. So we bundle to complete that implementation of that gem. Not necessary because we've already done rspec -- in it, but just for completion. So we've got a spec file, a spec folder, and I want to make a test for my bike, which will be the smallest kind of element of this bike exercise. And we're going to do a number of things. We're going to require bike. RSpec does that automatically. It finds it from the lib file. And then we're going to describe bike, our bike class. And we are going to create a new bike. And also describe this. So it has status that defaults to true. A working status. Bike working status that defaults to true, because obviously we need to check whether our bike works or not, and that's going to be when we go into the docking station. So we can use our expect bike.working to equal true. Now if bike.working is false, so we can set that as false, then we can expect bike.working to equal false. And that's a pretty simple test to start. Now if we run our RSpec file, which we do by the RSpec, we've got an uninitialized constant bike. So we then go into our bike class and we resolve that issue by creating a bike class and then also giving it certain attributes. We have to be able to read the attribute of working, and we give it an initialize method which allows us to tell whether the bike is working or not. So let's RSpec and test that, and that is now passing. So that's quite pleasing. The status of the bike defaults to true. So we move on and start to think about our bike docking station. So we can call that our docking station spec. So docking station spec.rb, and we have to describe our docking station. So we require a docking station. Of course, again, our spec will find this automatically, and we describe docking station do. We let bike double bike. Now this is in order to avoid our kind of complicating our tests by having other classes being tested within one test. So we ensure that we double this bike to make sure that it doesn't have to refer to more than one class at the same time. Otherwise, the test is not really a scientific test. So let's start with our capacity. So capacity of the docking station, and this is our overarching describe statement, and it should have a variable bike capacity. So our docking station equals docking station dot new, and we put in 40, for instance, for our docking station, and 40 dot times docking station ds dot dock bike. Now, what we expect from that, we expect ds.dock bike, this final dock of the bike, to raise an error. Sorry, docking station is full. End. So that's our first it statement. Now we can also include another it statement to check that it has a default capacity. So it has a default capacity. Expect docking station default capacity. Now this is our constant default capacity. W equals subject dot capacity to equal true. So this is testing our capacity function within the docking station. So it's the capacity constant and also the dock function. So we go into our bike, our docking station, and we start to, because obviously if we do a test, you'll notice that this is going to fail, and part of the reason is because docking station is not instantiated as a class. So we resolve that by creating a docking station class to start with. Now this docking station class will need to require bike, and that's because it's going to use the bike in order to dock it. So docking station, class docking station, end, and we will need to have a reader which allows us to tell whether there are bikes and also the capacity. So our constant default capacity is equal to 20, and def initialize capacity equals default capacity at bikes is an empty array, and our at capacity is equal to capacity. So that's our initialize, which we can read those options, those different descriptions of the docking station. Now we've got an error statement for which we need to implement, and also our dock function, or our dock method. So we call the method by using dock and inputting. Sorry, I've got a bit confused there. Run docking station. We can run a test anyway, just to show you what our next issue will be. And the failure is that we can't we haven't got a dock method. So we start by using our dock method. Now, of course, it needs to raise an error. Sorry, docking station is full if we're trying to dock the bike, and if it's full, and we return process bike. Now, of course, we'll have to use our return process as well. So that will require us to create a return method, and bike actually we can save that. We'll save that. So return process bike dot working is true, then at bikes we push in a bike. Otherwise, I think actually what we'll do is we'll just at bikes, we'll just do this for the moment. At bikes we push in the bike into our bikes array. And I think I've got a little bit messed up there, because this should actually all be in our docking station. So dock bike, return process, push the bikes in, and I think actually this should make our tests pass. There's one fail. We've not got a full method, so we can call that within our privates, part of our class, and at bikes dot size plus is greater than or equal to at capacity. Now that should resolve our issues, and we've got all tests passing. So this is a good start for us for our first test which we've been using, which is it should have a variable bike capacity and should have a default capacity. Now in our docking station we can also go into a bit more depth as regards our docking station and describe the dock method in more detail. So let's go into that with more clarity now. So it should dock a bike when dock is called. So what we'll do is we'll do this one and then we'll move on to our next function, which is a receive and release. But we'll start with the dock here. So expect subject dock bike dot include bike to equal true. So does it include a bike? I think actually this should fail, of course, because we don't have we need to have allow we've got a too many brackets there. So we've got a normal fail here now, and include doesn't have, is undefined. So we then turn to our docking station and we look again at what the dock bike represents. So subject dock bike needs to include bike. Yeah, so we just had a bracket in the wrong place. So it should dock a bike when dock is called. So that it tests that possibility, and this is it expects the subject dock bike to include bike to equal true. So after we've docked a bike, then we expect us to have a bike within our bikes array. That's quite a neat little statement of the test there. It should, our next test is it should dock broken bikes. Well, we're not actually testing for that quite yet, so it should not dock a bike when the station is full and raise an error. So this will be the last one we'll look at for this particular episode. So subject dot capacity dot times subject dot dock bike. So we're doing it the amount of times that the capacity is stated, and we expect subject dot dock bike to raise error. Sorry, docking station is full. And this should pass because we've already got our raise error here. Sorry, docking station is full. So we run RSpec, and again that passes. So we're quite pleased, in a good position with bike and docking station here, where we've got a clear statement of our dock method, our return process, which we'll expand further, and also a test for whether the docking station is full. So I hope you've enjoyed this particular episode and look forward to our next session next week.